Thank you all for joining us. We're really excited about this panel discussion and roundtable because this is actually the second part of our collaborative series with Venture Café Tokyo and Tsukuba Connect. So it means a lot that you're joining us. Some of what came out of our initial discussions, which actually go back to our global gathering earlier in the year, is just that our innovation ecosystems have a lot in common, and there's a lot that we can learn from one another. And the more that we're able to sort of bridge those ecosystems and learn from one another, the better. So in part one, our conversations were focused more around STEM education, both for youth and for workforce development. And we learned in that session as well that we really didn't have a focus on art and the intersection of art, science, and education. So we definitely wanted to touch on that. So that's why we're all here today. So we have an amazing group of guests and panelists, including Angela McQuillen, Tomoyoshi Koyanagi, Yutaka Mishima, Laura Splan, and Mina Zarz. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to ask, and I'm Gary. I'm the program manager and experience designer at Venture Café Philadelphia. I'm going to ask that we sort of kick things off just by having each of our guests give a general overview of who you are and what do you do. And then from there, we have some questions to sort of have a conversation around that intersection of art, science, and education. All right. Angela, would you mind kicking things off for us?
Of course. Thanks, Gary. And thanks everyone for coming. My name is Angela McQuillen, and I work at the Science Center as the curator of the Esther Klein Gallery, which is an art gallery focused on the intersection of art, science, and technology. And I began my stint at the Science Center by curating bio-art exhibitions where artists would use a lot of biological media for their work. And during that time, I saw like how difficult it was for artists to get connected to scientists and have access to the tools that they needed. So I came up with an idea and proposed it to the CEO of the biotech company Integral Molecular, which is also on our campus. And together, me and Ben Durantz started an artist residency program where artists come and spend 3 months working in the lab alongside scientists. And then they have an exhibition later on, like a culmination of their work. So 2 of my artists in residence are here tonight, Mina and Laura, so they can share with you what they've been working on.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. Laura, would you mind going next?
Sure. I'm Laura Splan, and I'm an artist working at intersections of art, science, technology, and culture. And most of my work connects the materialities of science to poetic subjectivities of the everyday. And I did the residency. I think I was one of the first artists to do the residency that Angela and Ben started in 2018. And so I did that residency then, which was very different from the residency which I did this year remotely. So I had a really dynamic and great experience in 2018 and did an exhibition at the Esther Klein Gallery. And then in March, during shelter in place here in New York City, I approached the lab through email and asked if they would be interested in working remotely. And that evolved into another residency with Integral Molecular that was remote this time. So that's kind of my sci-art residency connection to Philadelphia. And then I also teach a lot of intersections of art, biology, and technology in public programming in relation to exhibitions. And then I've also taught courses at Stanford University in Palo Alto around interface and interactivity and data, and also biology.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Mina, let's go to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mina Zarz, and I'm an artist as well who's doing the residency currently. And in general, my work crosses a few fields from technology to philosophy to art to sometimes design and architecture. If I were to kind of again sum it up as far as my interests and backgrounds, I am really interested in understanding the particularities of what makes humans humans, and therefore, what does that even mean in the digital era, and it relationship to kind of different sciences, whether I become a sociologist for a minute or whether I become a scientist for another minute. I also teach at Temple University here in Philadelphia, and I've taught in a different area of courses, from coding, creative coding, to incorporating kind of VR and AR, but they all revolve around ideas of world making and understanding, again, humans in relationship to all these different kind of sciences. And currently I'm wrapping up my residency, so I'm very excited to see how that's going to come together as an online experience, where I've collected all the data from the residency itself, from communicating with the scientists, and doing a lot of research, probably more research than I've ever done for any project in the past. And I'm hoping that it would get launched in the next month.
Awesome. Excited to learn more, Mina. Thank you. Tomo, I'm going to come to you next.
Yes, yeah. So, hi everybody. My name is Tomoko Nagi from the University of Tsukuba. And yeah, it's my pleasure to have this is actually the fourth meeting with Gary and the folks from the Philadelphia. I personally was educated as an engineer from the fermentation biology. And then I moved to the cell biology. And actually, I was trained at Stanford University as a postdoc. And around that time, I started to see the value of the science to give the impact to the business. And then when after coming back to Japan, I started to have more about the relationship with startup company and the venture community. And eventually now I'm running a program for the entrepreneurship training for the doctors or scientists in the life science area here in Tsukuba. I personally was actually my career before coming to Tsukuba was the Kyoto University. And at Kyoto, I had many interaction with designer and the artist, and they also had a good understanding of the technology itself. And so that inspired me to think about what's the STEM plus art in my own work. And I personally play trumpet. And last night I was watching a documentary from Quincy Jones. I realized he started playing piano and trumpet, and then moved to learning the orchestration, and moved to Europe and adopted all the technology from the European type of music, and then coming back to the US, and then he started to work together with Michael Jackson. So I really want to have some scientists or engineers doing the similar way. I really want to have somebody, and I see this some tendency in Yuta's activity. So that's why I asked Yuta to join this session. That's it.
I love that. Thank you, Tomo. All right, Yuta, your name has been mentioned, so you are officially up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. My name is Yutaka Mishima. Maybe came here as a scientist who did the international exhibition in Kyoto recently. And which I did there is makes one artificial work collaborate with one artist with a specific theme, which is the ethical problem about stem cell biology. So my background is stem cell biology, also immunology, and hematology. So I'm currently belong to the Tsukuba University medical faculty, but before 5 years before, I spent 5 years for the Kyoto University as well, and the institution, research institution named CIDR. I will tell you later, but the CIDR is stands for the Center for iPS Cell Research and Application. It's a very strong specific, have a strong specificity for the study of the iPS research. iPS cell means it's maybe some of you already know the one of the stem cells, specific stem cells, artificial stem cells, which we can make from the adult cells. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to join this fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yuta. Clearly, there are a bunch of synergies here in this group, which is awesome. And I don't think we knew that before this discussion. One thing to note, definitely for all of our panelists, feel free to jump in and ask your own questions to one another if you would like to. But just our initial question is, how can artists and scientists come together in collaborations that will benefit all players, including the public? So maybe Angela, if you want to sort of kick things off with that, and we can go around and everyone can share their thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that a lot of scientific and artistic collaborations involve an artist sort of coming into the scientist space and learning what the scientist does and all the jargon and all the skills. But I think it's really important to emphasize that there should be like a mutually beneficial relationship where the artist offers something to the scientist as well and kind of offers new creative modes of thinking about their work as well. So I think it's really important in this type of collaboration that everyone's sort of on equal ground and you know, has that both the artist and the scientist are both contributing equally. And I think as far as their role, the role that the public plays, I would say that I don't think it's necessarily an artist's job to like communicate or educate the public on scientific topics, but I think it's important to engage the public in some type of dialogue or discussion, or you know, an entry point for the public to get more involved in this type of work.
So thanks, Angela. I feel like Yuta has some work that does exactly that. Yuta, do you have any thoughts there or want to share it a little bit more?
Okay, if you don't mind, I can show you some slide about my recent work and in the Kyoto team.
We'd love to see it.
Maybe can you active the sharing option of the function of the Zoom?
Yes. Are you able to do it now?
Not yet.
Give me 1 second. All right. And how about now?
Yep. So oops, no, not this. It's here. So yeah, this is a website of the Kyoto team, international convention art competition recently closed, but it was held for a month. So in that competition, I made one artwork with a artist about tackle the problem of the LC, specifically saying my theme is the title is Cell and Glass. This is for the understanding of the ethical problem about recent progress of the stem cell technology, specifically saying the haze technology. I will show you another slide about the haze a little bit, because maybe you need to understand a little bit. Wait. Oh, sorry for this is a bit. I'm not sure you guys will know about iPS cells. It stands for the induced pluripotent stem cell. Easily, shortly say, we can make the stem cell from the adult skin cells by taking your own cells and like your own original stem cells from your skins or some your blood, and using this technology. Recently, people can maybe do making the human animal chimeric embryos. It stands for the haze technology. It's shortly introduce you the technology. It's using the iPS cells with some animal egg and the fusion of the iPS cells with some, okay, in this case, and the pig, but pig which cannot make the pancreas, for instance. And then this iPS cell injected the pig egg without function of the making the pancreas. Then only this human iPS cell can replace the pancreas cells. But the figure is a pig pancreas, but inside this material is a human cell. Then when you, after it grow and came up, lays up the pig, and you can take the pancreas cells for the transplantation. For example, the type 1 diabetes mellitus disease patients with some. But the problem is, if you can make this type of things, okay, how about animal care? How about if this human cells mixed with not only pancreas, like mixed with neural cells, which in that case, this pig, okay, can say it's partially human neural system. It's partially human or not. This kind of technology has always a criticism, including the criticism, like gene editing. Recently, the Chinese scientists were made the genetic engineered twins, Lulu and Fu, and it was very big, how to say, got the criticism from the field of the scientist, also from the society. So before that it happened, we need to discuss closely with the public, not only inside the science community. So that's why I choose this topic for the art, for this competition, and a collaboration with the artist. We make it one film, which is a story of the. This is a fiction, but in near future, if this technology can be applicable, one patient here got the transplantation from this technology, and what they feel, what might happen to him, or this kind of film with collect information technological background with a panel at the same time, and through the question, what do you think if this future will make it realize in this field, or this kind of speculative design artwork I did. So this is my work. And there are lots of huge, we are collecting the opinion, the Twitters on sometimes, of course, the questionnaires, and we opened some place to collecting the opinions. And our institute have one big, very unique department about ethics. I will show you this. It's not my work, but this department also doing. No, it's my next. This is next topic, my friends. Wait seconds.
Can you tell us the name of the artist you worked with?
Hayashi, Yuki Hayashi. Here, it's in Japanese. Hayashi Yuki Hayashi. I will show you later. But what I want to say is this department and about in IPS cell also made publish in this IS International Society of Stem Cell Society as one stem cell report. The American also they did research about collecting opinion in the American public and how they feel about this questionnaire. Attended 430 people attended this research and about the health research, and it was published in the before I forgot the name. Yeah, but this type of collaboration and a drive or let people think about deeply about this issue. Yeah, one is that. And okay, if allow me to 3 more minutes, I will show you one more as an experiment topic. Wait. So I will directly show you. Yeah, she's my friend. And she did actually. Unfortunately, I invited her here today, but due to the scheduling issue, she cannot come here. But she allowed me to introduce her work here by using her website. But named Impossible Baby. This is a story about same-sex couples making their children by using the IPS technology. So shortly saying, I will briefly show you how work. And this is her website, and this is the Impossible Baby case. And she's her friend, and very famous in Japanese society. As a society means LGBT society, LGBTQ society. She's a one, like an icon of the LGBT society in Japan. And Ai Hasegawa, she collaborated with her and her partner Moriga, and what they did is taking the genetic information by using the 23andMe and extract some feature of the typical genetic feature like eye colors and hair coloring or some genetic of course this is under agreement of using this info from both parents, imaginary parents, and the man Moriga also did this. And what she did is mixing the genes genetic future artificially by computer and generate two imaginary children who takes after gene futures from the both parents, and making a collaboration with gaming company. I forgot the name, maybe the Capcom. And anyway, the collaboration with the CG creator and very precisely modeling the two imaginary children, Moeko and Powako, and having some features as eye colors and a lot of features, and also the sculpts modeling from the both parents and generated two random modeling of the children and put it and make it some pictures and photo and the future family photo of these imaginary photos and put it in the art museum. And this is one kind of very famous, it was held in Tokyo. And also she collects the opinion about this type of future. What do you think? And collecting the Twitters, also some specialist. He's a lawyer. What will happen to the lawyer problem about these type of children, or also the scientist, interview of scientists, how it grows as a technology like that. And lots of okay, of course, including the opposite or agreement, or a lot of anger or fears and joy, or some very expecting the very positive, including a positive opinion. But anyway, this type of work to like a so-called speculative design fields. So let them think deeply with precise background, scientific background. Yeah. For example, this case, this is my first collaboration, not collaboration, but this is the first for me the memorable case because of this project. I met her, Ai Hasegawa, in Boston when she was in the MIT Media Lab. Actually, she did it as a master thesis of the Media Lab. And when I met her first time, she asked me to scientifically correct or not. For example, the sexual same female raised to the children, they have maybe XX chromosome. Then under this technology, maybe they cannot make the boy and girl. Only girl can make it. If you want to take both children's genetically background. So that's type of a collection or consulting which I did for this collaboration, also the scientifically correct or not, like that. But anyway, so long talk. I will wrap up this time kind of collaboration I did. So if you have a question about that, or just
I mean, I guess maybe just like a question for the whole group, like what kind of role do you think artists should play in talking about the ethical issues of science?
Actually, the artist, in my personal opinion, I don't think the artist need to have to express their own opinion about this artwork, but just making the situation about the workplace to people make thing or drive the correct with the correct information, like how to say. Of course, the Ai Hasegawa also have her own opinion about this technology, but she doesn't show any private emotion or private sense or private opinion on that art. Just she tried to make the place to make them discuss like that. But the important thing is a scientific collect, but need to leave a room to discuss about their own opinion. So in my experience, I think what I learned from this collaboration, Kyoto Stream, both Kyoto Stream and this Impossible Baby. Generally saying, I feel that the science is a concept of the concrete, of definite, or substantial, objective things, and very good at deal with the data or something. But art, on the contrary, it was sometimes abstractive on the also figure level, and good at dealing with emotion and drive people integrate also the intangible asset. So also sciences is a specific background or knowledge, need a background or knowledge, but the art can deal or expand the concept or to expose some information to people without any specific background, or you can connect the art connect background that your life itself experience in the background, okay, race and sex and like genetic information, genetically background. Anyway, this type of in that viewpoint, art, I think it's a collaboration with the scientists and artists can manage the how to say, can drive this kind of healthy discussion, ethics and legal and public communication. It can work, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be great to hear from some of the artists here, what they think about that.
I was gonna jump in for a second. Lara, do you want to talk first, or?
Go ahead, Mina.
Yeah, I mean, again, like there are like good points that are being shared as far as kind of the ethics and the responsibility of us, all of us, like scientists and artists and whatever that we're contributing to the world, because whatever that we do, it creates a culture. And whether we're an architect, we make an ugly building, or whether we're scientists, we're kind of doing very funky stuff, or we're artists and we're making beautiful, bizarre things. I think we're all contributing to an understanding of the world in general, and that brings a responsibility and all the like the ethics of kind of that work too. Like I could speak to my own experiences that like in my the way I put the science and art together. I am questioning that responsibility and ethics, because I think that we actually are very human-centered. We are obsessed with humans too much. We do a lot of scientific experiments that are to understand humans better, or we put our own consciousness first, and we kind of create models that compares everything to humans first, and then becomes like, you know, different kind of species come into play. I'm not trying to kind of generalize it or have a reductionary point into this, but I think in that sense we are a little bit self-delusional, perhaps, or you know, I know it's kind of a better word for that, but we can't ignore the fact that we are a little bit kind of obsessed with our own self-importance. And with Yuta, you're sharing that kind of stem cell project that, you know, those kind of things, people have opinions with them, of course, like how does this get controlled as a study? How does this, whatever that outcomes of that project, where does this go, right? And you know, I'm working on something that I want to synthesize a protein out of a kind of ethical conversation, you know, between two evil and good or whatever, right? And if that protein is me, where does that go? And how does that communicate with the organisms in general? So I think like we need to reverse that reaction a little bit. We need to become more like followers and listeners, and not necessarily try to lead too much as artists and as scientists in general, I think. But that kind of involves experimentation, and it still involves doing things. But I think it's a very hard job to decenter humans from all these conversations and say, if we're not the center, can we find another center? what would that be? And I feel like those are the speculations that are worth having. And when I was kind of listening towards the last slide that Yuta was sharing, I feel like, again, I think at the basic level that's true. Like there's so much concreteness in science. There's like maybe less concreteness in art, but I don't think that's necessarily true anymore, because I think science is actually not as concrete. I think a lot of things came in the sciences based on speculations too, based on coincidences, and then giving room for those questions to become something bigger. And I think, Laura, you had a quote from your residency that you made a neon from, like you have to just like let it sit and see what happens. I feel like it's that is the very beginning of a lot of scientific work. You don't know, there's no concreteness in it actually. Like you just have to, like, maybe you have an intent, maybe you are wishing something would come out of something. And I think an artist does that too. They have an intention, but at the end it doesn't matter. Like I feel like in the arts, everybody says the intention of the artist doesn't matter. It's more about kind of, again, you become a follower, and what does that tell you? Where can you take that? That becomes a question. So and I feel like I wanted to kind of tie all this back to, Gary, your question at the beginning that you I don't remember specifically what was the question, but it was something about kind of the role of the scientist and artist, right? I feel like, we're all kind of, in that sense, we are interpreters. Like we are interpreting stuff, whether it's data, whether it's anything that comes towards us, something that hits us, whether it's invisible, whether it's visible, whether it's tactile, whether it's just like smell or something that's like less tangible. And this is all about translation. It's about interpretation and making sense of things. But then, what do you do with that? And then that becomes a responsibility, right? I always use architecture as an example, because I feel like right now with gentrification, especially like here in our locale in Philadelphia, there's so many ugly buildings are being made. And I'm like, these architects don't have a sense of responsibility, because we're making images, and these images are affecting how people process the world. And it becomes part of your understanding how you should see things, how you should respond even to humanity in general. I feel like we're just getting rewired constantly, just because we're being put into systems that they don't take these kind of ethics seriously, which is, again, an outcome of neo-capitalism, perhaps, that, it's more about profit, it's more about money. So responsibility gets shoved into a corner.
Great. Thank you, Mina.
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to respond to about what both Yuta and Mina said was, I think there's something about the potential for art to reveal these hidden systems that are at play. And, we have this tendency, sometimes to think of art and science as separate, but also to kind of not even consider all of these other interconnected disciplines and systems that are at play within them. And I think that that's something that I try to do with my own work. And I really loved hearing you to present both the science and the kind of artistic and creative manifestation of those biological concepts, and just thinking about how poised art is to explore and translate or interpret or even rematerialize ideas of hybridity and mutability of bodies. And even with your work, Mina, like what is human, what is not human, or what does it mean to be human? And just thinking of how much of this sci art work deals with speculative futures, and thinking about, coming back to that question of like, what is the role of the artist to kind of have an ethical point of view, or like an ideology. I think a lot of what's really useful is just the simple provocation. And something that you showed a lot in those projects, Yuta, is this conversation, like letting the conversation and these kind of surveys that you did, like the the conversations and responses of viewers come into the work or into the gallery or into the conversation is really important. And seeing like what the work can do within those provocations, and then yes, what is the culture and what is the knowledge that's being produced through those conversations is what I think that art can do really effectively in these different public contexts. And I would say that, you know, the just coming back to your question, Gary, about, you know, what does the artist bring to the collaboration? What does the science bring to the collaboration? That the two collaborations that I did were very different. Like the first one, I was basically kind of hanging out in the lab and shadowing scientists and observing their experiments for 3 months and attending lab meetings and learning about their research. And then it wasn't really until my exhibition happened, which was actually almost a year later, and I presented this work that was, some of it was provocative, some of it was speculative, some of it was kind of rematerializing their research in different ways. It wasn't really until then that we started having these conversations with both the scientists and the public, but the art worked, or it functioned to kind of mediate those conversations, I thought, in productive ways. And then in my remote residency, it was actually specifically framed as a collaboration. And it was very different because I was at home, the scientists were at home, and we were collaborating through Zoom. So it was more this kind of like even territory, or we were kind of like coming at it from a place of more like balance. And I think that that's something, to answer your question, Gary, is I think one thing that I feel like is really missing from some sci art residencies or bio art residencies is, it is often, as Angela mentioned, artists coming into laboratories and responding to scientists' research. And there's often a lack of like studio components, like a studio space for artists to be working in, where there can be this back and forth, like physical visiting of both spaces between artists and scientists that would facilitate those conversations, I think, a lot better, and facilitate those collaborations.
Yeah, thank you all. And definitely for our artists, if you have any work you would like to showcase while we're here, definitely feel free to. I do want to quickly remind everyone in attendance that if you have your own questions, feel free to enter them into the chat, and we'll make sure that our panelists can get to them for you. I'm curious to know from Angela or Tomo, you know, like, how do you go about like facilitating those interactions between scientists and artists? Like, how do you know, like, what are the right pairings of people? Like, how do you even go about it?
Tomo, do you want to go?
Yeah, from my side, I was kind of just started to have the collaboration, to get attention from the artist. So that's the activity started from the junction with Yuta. So it's not very easy yet, but I already had an experience to work together with designers. So which is more about the product design, or already have some similar goal to develop eventually. But working together with artists, it's kind of fun for me, because the way of the seeing the value, or any kind of the way of the proceeding the program or project itself is totally different. For example, like in Media Lab, they are combining two things together. If I'm scientist, like I'm protein chemist, then I draw like a protein and protein. But my ex-supervisor, who was Darimo Shirozen, who was the professor at Stanford University School of Medicine, but she's also artist. So her way of thinking is let's think about it, to change the heights situation to the situation. And then that was the way of the thinking, how the protein-protein interaction changes depending on the situation. So I was expecting that kind of analogy or different kind of way of thinking to absorb from the artist. So that's the expectation, but I just started. Angela?
Yeah, okay, so I guess when we were selecting artists in the beginning, we definitely wanted artists who were interested in science and had demonstrated that in their previous work. So both Mina and Laura had done that. But I think there was a big issue of time. So, you know, we could only fund 3 months of the residency. So we didn't want the artists to come in with a project idea already fully formed, because we wanted them to come in and like respond to the scientist's work. But we also didn't have enough time for them to just come in and, you know, spend like a year absorbing everything. So it was like a little bit of a balance between the two. And I guess, I mean, I don't know, each artist has responded very differently to the setup. And I think in general, we're just looking for people who have a lot of curiosity, who are open-minded and kind of like willingness to just be playful and experiment.
I love that. I love the artistic aspect of it. Just, you know, sort of experiment and figure it out. That's super cool to me. So we have about 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure that if anyone would like to ask a question, you can feel free to do that now, either by raising your hand or just adding a note in the chat, and we'll make sure that you're able to ask.
I have a question for Tomo and Yuta. I was wondering how you feel that artists benefit your scientific practice. Or just creativity in general.
Okay, so I myself, it's well, the biggest jump which we have to make in the scientific situation, it's hard. It's very, very hard to make big jump from the current existing scientific community, like the iPS cells. Dr. Yamanaka started to think about the reprogramming of the any kind of cells. So I think many people were competing each other, but everybody was hiding everything under the water, right? But somebody has to think about how they can approach that kind of, well, the big question. So everybody has to be creative. But in the scientific education, we've never educated creativity. So that's the biggest thing I always expecting to when talking with artists. So even looking at very good paintings in the museum, I always think about what is the motivation of the artist who started to think about this motif and the way of the selecting painting color or materials. So that's kind of jump of the imagination is I always expecting, and I also want to know how Mina and Laura is thinking when you guys talking to the scientists.
Yeah, I can respond to that and also maybe answer the question that's in the chat from Tracy, which is like, what is the biggest surprise about your interactions? What was your surprise aha moment, maybe is what you meant? Yeah, so when I was doing my first residency, I was introduced to some molecular visualization software, which I basically fumbled around and kind of figured out how to sort of break, like make it do very strange spastic animated movements. And that was, that kind of sparked some conversations with the scientists about protein structures and how they use the software in their laboratory for antibody discovery and looking at models of viruses and antibodies in human cells, different protein structures. So that kind of experimentation in that software actually generated a lot of conversations, and then that became the foundation for my remote residency, where we did spend a lot more time just having conversations through Zoom about the kind of quirks of the software, and even thinking about the interface design and the color palettes and some of the arbitrary systems that are in place to represent molecular biology visually, and some of the aesthetic choices that are being made or not made to represent molecular structures. So my own kind of experiments in the software kind of led to a lot of conversations with those scientists, and then also there were kind of explorations together about what structures I was, to choose that would be appropriate for the ideas that I had, what structures would be appropriate to choose for these animations that I was working on.
Actually, to answer both questions too, because I kind of was part of the residency in a different capacity at the beginning, and seeing, like, kind of observing other artists, kind of interacting, and it's too exciting for an artist to be in a science, especially if you have that kind of curiosity in your work. There's a lot that you can respond to. It's like a candy word. You're like, oh my God, I want to play with this. I can do that. I can do this. And but once I was in a residency myself, it was really hard to narrow it down. It was because I had a lot of questions I wanted to kind of play with. But the most important thing that triggered my curiosity, because of my backgrounds in languages, and English is not my first language. I know a bunch of different languages. It's all about kind of interpretation, using kind of data science in different kind of modes as well. At first, I was thinking that we speak different languages, but until I started working with their material, that I realized actually we don't speak different languages. It's just we shy away to maybe actually kind of confess that there are similar things. And that became more obvious when I was asking scientists to anthropomorphize amino acids for me. So it's like, if you were to associate the amino acids with a human trait, what would that be? And that's like when the subjectivity actually came forward, and all the contradictions actually started showing up, where scientists would be like, oh, this allogenine is like very shy. The other one would be like, actually is very outgoing. So like one would say this is very stupid, one would say that's very intelligent. And but it was really hard to get them to do that. That was just as an example. I'm not looking at the chart. But getting them to speak my language, like, again, like, it's not different. Like, we have this like kind of common key. We have this like, again, middle ground that we understand each other, right? It's a kind of, I don't know. It's maybe it's that kind of the digital ones and zeros that they give us images, or they give us text in the digital world. But that was kind of the aha moment. That is just kind of the pairing, the kind of how do I invite our scientists be comfortable sharing that information? That is kind of, it's in the middle ground. It's neither this or it's nor that. Yeah, and I'm still kind of working. I'm still processing all that data.
I would just also say, in answer to Lisa's question, are there any educational programs for scientists to learn creative mindset from artists? I would just say, first of all, I don't know of any, but also I think that scientists are very creative and they do have a very creative mindset. And I think that's why art and science can be so compatible, because basically both genres are just kind of exploring the world around us, just in different ways. Yeah, so, but I do know of one program where med students take art classes, and it supposedly helps them with their empathy in bedside manner. So Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all. So we never have enough time for these discussions. Clearly, we need to schedule like a 2-hour conversation. But we can have a, part 3, part 4, maybe we go up to part 100 in the next year. To sort of close things out, I actually was really interested in hearing from the Venture Café Tokyo team just about their thoughts about this session and our collaboration in general. I'm super grateful to the Venture Café Tokyo team, as well as Scuba Connect for collaborating us and for having all these amazing discussions. But since this is our 100th session, last one of the year, definitely wanted to hear from Tokyo. So Lisa or Tak, I'm not sure if you wanted to jump in and say anything, but we're incredibly grateful for you.
Tak, do you want to go first or I'll go first?
You can go first.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for the 100th Thursday gathering. We're so happy for that. Yeah, yay. And then also thank you so much for putting this wonderful gravity session together. As Gary mentioned, that this started from the Global Thursday gathering. And then I think this is one of the great outcome from like we moved to the virtual world, that now we can do this kind of like more global collaboration together. And then last time we had a lot of like a Tsukuba community join this session, and then they also learned a lot from you about the STEM education and what's going on in the Philly. And then now I think it was a wonderful session to like combine the science and art and how we can work together with. So I really looking forward for this series continuing, and then we can learn from each other, and then if the community merge together and then collaboration happen, I think that is wonderful. So thank you so much.
Agreed. And we love your backgrounds. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple things to add on, just because Lisa, she did it, I think she said most of it. But thank you again for inviting us and letting us connect. Sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse. It's very dry here in Japan right now. But I think, it's super important for us to take advantage of the situation we're in during the pandemic currently and be able to connect, across the ocean. I think it's very, very, it's much needed, and also it's very hard to do. And I think Venture Cafe, this might be a little bit of a hard sell, but is able to connect people during even such, hopefully once in a lifetime event. Hopefully this is over very quickly or very soon. So much appreciated of the Philadelphia community and the greater Venture Cafe community to be able to do such a collaboration, talk things like STEM and educate each other. I think, the subject matter today was super interesting, and a lot more people should know about it. And a lot more people should be able to discuss about it. And as I believe Yuta said, like, be able to discuss whether, and everyone has an opinion. So being able to have that platform to discuss and keep that discussion going is super important. No matter the result, I think everyone can learn from it. So very happy and very excited to be part of this. And hopefully, again, as Gary, you just mentioned, hopefully 100 more episodes of this will be coming up in the next, year or so. That'll be pretty cool. And then not just within Tokyo, Tsukuba, Nagoya, Philadelphia, but hopefully our greater regions and our greater community, we can come together and discuss further. So congratulations again on the 100 to 3,000 more to Philadelphia and beyond. We'll talk, and we'll see you guys in 2021, hopefully.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Closing thoughts, Angela, any of our panelists, we appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you everyone for coming. This was awesome.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Tomo. Thank you, Mina, Yuta, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Gary, and everybody else.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your night or day. Continue to stay safe. Tracy, I don't know, did you want to say anything? I think we can't hear you. Oh.
I think Tracy's been having some audio.
You're all amazing, and we love you, and we can't wait to see you in the future. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It was
In
very
touch.
nice.
Have a good night.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye.